Hello and welcome to Conscious TV. My name is Eleonora Gilbert, and today in the studio with us we have Pathik Strand. Pathik is going to help me with this second book review and of the day. And Pathik is a writer as well as writing book reviews as well. And we have slightly different than what we've done previously is we also are going to be featuring his book. So Pathik has, first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And Pathik has selected three books, including his, and I'm just going to quickly go through what we will be talking about and the impact that these books have had on Pathik Strand process of seeking. The first one is The End of Your World by Adyashanti, and I'm particularly very fond of Adyashanti myself, and I've read quite a lot of his stuff. The second one is Jed McKenna and Spiritual Enlightenment, the Damnedest Thing. I love this title. The third one is All This Is That, written by Pathik Strand. And the fourth one, I just adore this book. It's been such it's had a real deep impact on me, and it's called Perfect Brilliant Stillness by David Carse, and it actually was recommended by you. I never even heard about David Carse. I hadn't heard of Jed McKenna either. So Pathik, tell me, why have you chosen The End of Your World by Adyashanti?
Well, I've chosen that book because, first of all, Adyashanti has had a major impact on me and my, what I would like to call the process of awakening, because I don't see myself as a seeker. That stopped when I came across Adyashanti. I started listening to him, his audio programs, nearly 2 years ago, and that caused a major shift in consciousness for me.
Right.
Yes.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. I realized that enlightenment or spiritual awakening, or however you want to call it, has nothing to do with having some kind of great, fantastic, blissful experience. And it's not a state either that you sort of go into and then you're sort of blissful and glorious forevermore. It's really basically realizing your true nature, who you are. And I think that's what happened when I came across Adyashanti and I was listening to him. But when I read that book, The End of Your World, it helped clarify a lot of things for me, because the process of awakening isn't necessarily easy. It can be quite challenging. And I had, many years ago when I was 21, I had a very powerful spiritual awakening experience, which completely changed my life, because I had an experience in which I basically ceased to exist.
Yes.
I was nothing, yet I was everything at the same time.
Yes.
And from that moment onwards, I became a spiritual seeker.
Right.
Because
yes.
I misunderstood something. I thought that this had to be enlightenment. It had to be like this, and I wanted that experience back. But of course, that's a misunderstanding. And also, it made my life a lot more difficult, because the world knows nothing about this, or very little anyway.
Yes.
And I felt alienated from virtually everything. I mean, I'd always been kind of an outsider and misfit, but
Right.
I felt as if I was in a world of aliens.
Yes.
And that was very difficult to deal with.
You said that in this book there's a particular passage that you are particularly fond of.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I wonder if you would read it for me.
With pleasure. Spiritual awakening is a remembering. It is not becoming something that we are not. It is not about transforming ourselves. It is not about changing ourselves. It is a remembering of what we are, as if we'd known it long ago and had simply forgotten. At the moment of this remembering, if the remembering is authentic, it's not viewed as a personal thing. There is really no such thing as a personal awakening, because personal would imply separation. Personal would imply that it is the me, or the ego, that awakens or becomes enlightened. But in a true awakening, it's realized very clearly that even the awakening itself is not personal. It is universal spirit, or universal consciousness, that wakes up to itself. Rather than the me waking up, what we are wakes up from the me, What we are wakes up from the seeker. What we are wakes up from the seeking.
So how did that impact you?
Well, I understood that it's not me that is going through an awakening as such. It's not the ego. The person cannot become enlightened.
Yes.
Because the person is just really a concept. It's an illusion, really. So it is the awakeness or consciousness itself that wakes up from all of that, from that dream. And I think Adyashanti helped to clarify that for me. So I actually understood that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
And also he helped me to actually go past the experience of feeling so sort of lost and alienated in the world. Because, as he says in that book, it's quite common actually.
Right. So to move on from Adyashanti,
Yes.
what made you choose Jed McKenna?
Well,
The sequence, there is a specific
yes,
order
I came
of
across
things.
Jed McKenna a few months after I had come across Adyashanti, and it was absolutely perfect because Jed McKenna is, in his teaching, for want of a better word, is very similar to Adyashanti, but
Right.
the way that book is written, well, first of all, it's a first book in a trilogy.
Yes.
So, and it's written in literary form, so it's like a record of conversations and events that happens to Jed McKenna, the enlightened guy, as he presents himself. But I don't think that this book actually tells of events and conversations that actually took place, and Jed McKenna himself is a made-up character.
Right.
And I don't think it's the author's name, but that's really beside the point. Because he puts this type of very profound teaching into a literary format.
Right.
And that is very exciting, and it is very, very well done.
Why is it exciting for you?
It's exciting for me because I'm a writer myself, and I try to do exactly the same thing in my book.
Okay.
I mean, I have a very different style of writing from Jed McKenna, but that was a very big inspiration for me.
Right, okay.
Because when I read that, I was absolutely certain that, yes, this can be done, because he's done it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And as far as the the style is what you found exciting, but I also read parts of this book and I just thought it is very quirky, and I like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very irreverent, and I really like that even better.
Absolutely.
So again, was there any specific thing about this trilogy that inspired you, that made a difference in the same way that The End of Your World by Adyashanti made?
I wouldn't say that it made a difference in the same way that Adyashanti did, because that was like a very major shift.
Right, okay.
That was more like inspiration from my own writing process, and for being able to actually express
Yes.
the truth that I could see, but which is not easy to put into words, obviously.
Right.
So it was more to do with having a source of information, not information, sorry, inspiration.
Right.
And also because it's so entertaining. He's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. There is one passage here that, let's see if I can find it. And I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm just going to briefly read this bit because I just thought it was kind of interesting. To say it plainly, the vast majority of the world's authorities on enlightenment are themselves not enlightened. They may be something, but they are not awake. An easy way to distinguish between caterpillars and butterflies is to remember that the enlightened don't attach importance to anything, and that enlightenment doesn't require knowledge. It's not about love or compassion or consciousness. It is about truth.
Yes.
And I thought, great, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so yes, enlightenment is about truth, nothing else. So you talked about, just briefly, about your book, All This Is That. Tell me, what made you write this particular book?
Well, what made me write it is that there is a natural urge to express myself in a creative manner. And I've always had a talent for writing and to express things in writing. And because I've been on this journey of awakening for more than 30 years, it was natural for me to try to express all of that in writing, and I wanted to do it in literary form because that is much more sort of interesting, and it's much more fun to write in that way. And it's also easier, I think, for readers to actually relate to it, and it's easier to read it because you can do all sorts of things with language and way of presenting things that you couldn't do if you just wrote straight non-fiction.
Yeah. What I find interesting about your book is the ideas are of there being a process of enlightenment, let's say, are explained really, really clearly. Probably I'm not really representing your book accurately when I say there is a process of enlightenment, because we know that there isn't one. But I did like the development of the various ideas in the book. Would you like to say something more about that?
Yeah, well, you could say that there is a process of enlightenment or a process of awakening. In fact, I prefer to say that myself. So I don't have a problem with that, really. And what I've tried to do in that book is to describe in literary form the process that one of the main characters goes through on his journey from what I would say is confusion and frustration to relaxing into the true nature of his being. And I've tried to make it as alive and interesting as possible.
Is that what happened to you?
I would say yes, it is, but this is not an autobiography.
Right.
But of course, everything in that book is based on my own experience and also is drawn from my insight in, what it is all about.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me earlier, before the start of the program, that when you were 21, you had this amazing awakening that somehow didn't quite make sense at the time and left you somewhat alienated, and Adyashanti made a difference in terms of the deepening of the understanding of what had happened to you. So, and in writing this particular book, which you said is not autobiographical, but somehow does refer to the various, I hate to call it stages because it's not exactly various stages. Okay, I can say that, but I hate to call it that. So can you say a little bit more about, the process of you being here now, based upon the various things that you've read that perhaps have helped you in being here now to talk about it?
Well, I'm not quite sure what to say really, but to me it's kind of a process of shedding untruth and shedding all the illusions and all kinds of concepts that we have about not only spiritual awakening but about life itself and about who we are. And I think that's what's been happening with me over all these many years. That's the process. So it's more and more things or ideas or stuff or whatever keep falling away. And it's not a question of adding anything and of, acquiring something from the outside, whether it's some kind of understanding or some experiences or whatever it is. It's really a question of letting go of everything that's untruth. And then you're left with what you are, which is the truth. And that's always been there. It's never been missing. Not for anybody. And that's the joke of it all. Because it was always the case.
It is always the case.
Yeah.
But we don't
How
know
can
it.
we ever miss it?
But we don't know it, or we don't see it, or...
Well, we pretend that we sort of need something else, some kind of great experience over there, or some kind of blissful, elevated state, or whatever
another
it is.
book.
Yes, exactly, another book, and there's lots of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm particularly fond of another book, so there we go. Now, Perfect Brilliant Stillness. I'm so grateful that you've introduced me to this book, because I just think it's just fabulous. Tell me why you've selected this book.
Well,
And what impact has this had on you?
I've selected the book because it is really brilliant,
Yes.
and perfect, brilliant stillness. That says what it is, because it's full of this kind of light in a way, and it's obvious that it's written from a space of stillness, from deep stillness, and it's just a vitality and a quality to it that I find extremely rare in any book.
What specifically do you find rare?
Well, I think it's his ability to explain not only what happened to him,
Yes.
because it is like an autobiography, this book, like a spiritual autobiography.
Yes.
He has a very, very good way of doing that, and he sort of takes you along on this kind of journey that he's been on. And to me, it's as if I'm sort of there with him, experiencing all of this. And he has the ability also to express in words, I would nearly say truth, but it's impossible to really put truth into words. But he comes very, very close. Yeah. And the great thing about this book, or about this writing, is that you get to sort of experience that and live it while you read it.
Yeah.
And I can't say that about every single book I read.
Yeah. You know, as I was listening to you, I was also contemplating, why do I say that it is such a brilliant book? And what specifically impacts me about this book is that there is, it elicits something in me that is very heartfelt, very warm, very quiet. And it's just a joy to read. And as you said, other book elicits something else, and I would love to meet this individual. Yeah. And the way in which he writes is just so clear and so simple. Absolutely. That it's like, how can you not get it?
Yeah.
And other books are entertaining. I find this actually calming and putting me in touch really with what is real in a very, very clear, very distinct, very simple, and loving. I mean, loving way.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself.
Well,
that's exactly it. Really,
right.
It is. Yeah, he has that ability and that quality in his writing.
Yeah.
And if I had to get rid of every single book and keep just one, that's the one.
Right. Yeah. I feel not quite as strongly as that, but it's certainly the book that is by my bedside table, because it's just, when there are times when I lose sight of what I am.
Yes.
It's like, okay, remind myself. Yeah. Okay, so that's where I would definitely.
Absolutely, and you can open that book just about anywhere. Yeah. And there it is. It's so clear.
Yeah. So in terms of your journey, in terms of where you are right now, again, why these books? Say a little bit more about them.
Well, because they have been absolutely crucial to what has been happening in this process of awakening over the last 2 years. They've all been very important for that. And
how have they been important?
Because when I read, started with Adyashanti, when I listened to him and read that book, it clarified everything. Everything fell into place. So it's obviously a very important book, and I could say that about all of these in their particular way. Right. It has that quality, and that's what I'm looking for in the book. That very rare quality of actually bringing you into that space where there isn't any of that striving for something else. You just realize the truth of what you are. Yeah. And there isn't anything more to it, and it's very, very simple.
Going back to Adyashanti, The End of Your World, I remember reading this, actually listening to the audio tapes when I was at a particular retreat, and it helped tremendously to really turn the shift from being always looking externally for some sort of answer, something, to really knowing, no, that's not there. It's just really the focus was back again. So so I was delighted that you actually chose this particular book, because you know, it's been quite instrumental in that turning inwards.
Absolutely. I mean, we can search for all kind of experiences and have all sorts of experiences, but experiences always come and go. What you are is always the case. Consciousness, awareness is always there.
Yes.
It doesn't change. It doesn't go anywhere.
No, it doesn't. Tell me, is there anything in your book that you would like to, a quote or something that you may want to read?
Yes,
off the top of your head.
Yes, there is one small section here that I feel is quite typical of this book, and it'll tell you a lot of, you know, what kind of book it is. You have to remember that this is taken from a conversation between two people here, so it's a bit sort of conversational.
Yes.
When you look up at the blue sky, you are essentially looking at nothing. You are looking at infinity, the unfathomable vastness of deep space. That's the most accurate manifestation on the outer level of what you are, as if the emptiness of the clear sky is your formless being, somehow externalized. Now, if you also look at those pretty little clouds drifting across this endless depth of nothingness that we see as the blue sky, we can stretch the metaphor even further and see the clouds as your thoughts, or even as whatever happens to you in life. It's obvious that the emptiness of the blue sky isn't in any way affected by the clouds drifting by. All the clouds come and go, yet the all-embracing presence of sky or deep space remains completely untouched by it all. In the same way, thoughts, emotions, actions and all the rest of it appears and disappears in the endless expanse of your true being.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. And anything in perfect, brilliant stillness?
Yeah, well, I think the way the book starts actually is not only quite unique, but it says a lot about what this book really is about. And he has put a small section here before the book itself starts. It's called the fine print.
Yes.
As if you're looking at the contract or
That's
something.
right. That is the fine print. You better read it as well.
So I'm going to read just the beginning of it, but that really sets the tone. There are many books out there that will help you to live a better life, become a better person, and evolve and grow to realize your full potential as a spiritual being. This is not one of them. At the time of this writing, almost every popular spiritual teacher in America and Europe is teaching that ultimate spiritual enlightenment, once attained only by certain yogis, gurus, and other extraordinary beings, can now be yours, and that reading their book or attending their seminar will help you toward that end. This book will tell you that these ideas are absurd, because it's quite obvious that neither you nor anything else has ever existed.
Well, I think on that note, you know, thank you very much. And I really also appreciate the fact that you often write to us with a few comments or opinions, and I really do appreciate your support here at Conscious TV. So, this is it. Well, thank you for watching Conscious TV, and we hope to see you very soon. Take care.